And now into our final speakers for this morning before we go into the breakouts and morning tea. Our next two speakers are talking on data innovation and risk, and they are from Denodo from Denodo. So the first speaker I'd like to welcome on stage is Benjamin Henshall. Benjamin, if you'd like to join us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ben is the General Manager and Regional Vice President for Denodo Australia. He leads the Australian and New Zealand operations for Denodo and has a long history in data integration, application development markets, including almost 14 years at Red Hat. And joining him today is Minh Nguyen. Thank you for joining us. Minh is the Regional Director at Denodo, looking after the Australian federal government. Minh has been involved in several statewide data transformation initiatives and has published research papers on the topic of data sharing in the public sector. And Minh is currently doing an MBA in digital transformation at Harvard Business School. Thank you, Minh. Do you want to join us? And over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I realise that Minh and I are between you and a muffin. So please just bear with us, but there is going to be quite a lot of information that we're going to be sharing with you in the next 30 minutes, and I promise we will finish on time because no one gets between a bureaucrat and a muffin. Or a vendor and a muffin, I should say. So one of the things that we're going to be going through, the topic of our talk, ladies and gentlemen, is lessons learned around applying a data fabric. For those who were here last year, we did talk about a data fabric. It's been around for quite some time. We're going to spend a little bit of time on what is a data fabric and why a data fabric. But more importantly, Minh's going to take you through three of our clients who are in different phases of their data fabric journey, but from a government perspective, which I think you'll find particularly insightful. You can see here we've got a smattering of clients in the government sector, both from state, federal, and local levels. But we've selected three that we think are most poignant and most pertinent, particularly at a federal level. So we could have selected some others, but that just gives you an idea of some of our clients we've got there. So I'm going to talk about a data fabric and what it means to government, the value to be derived out of that, because that's really the question. What's the business value as opposed to what's the technicalities of it? Minh's going to take you through the stories, and then I'll have a couple of concluding remarks for about a minute or two. All right. So for those who are in the data space, in the data world, which I assume all of us are here, what is the data telling us about the success of business value around data transformation and data initiative programs? And the data is quite, I wouldn't say damning, that's probably too strong a word, but the data about the success rate of business value. Now, I want to be very, very clear. It's not technical value. It's business value that's being derived from data transformation initiatives. And so you can go and do your searches around the success rates or the failure rates. And what you're seeing in the graph here is higher is bad or it's not as good. We want lower. We want lower failure rates. So I know this is a little bit depressing. And it's not to cast aspersions about anybody's desire to try and have great business outcomes. And I want to come again to that point, the business outcomes. If you look at particularly the column on the second from the right, okay, from the second from the right and the last one, the digital business models. Now that's from Forrester. They're doing some research out of Asia Pacific, and that's their failure rate about business value being derived from digital transformation initiatives. The big one on the data science and the data lakes, the 85%, that's from Nick Herdiger from Gartner, and that famous quote about 85% of data lake projects fail, or big data initiatives fail. Anybody who's done a Cloudera migration would know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's not to say Cloudera is a bad technology, it's just to say that big data is a really, really hard beast to try and get value out of. So why is that? Why is that the case? Now, this is in commercial and government. It's not just government, it's commercial. So the commercial boys and girls are having just as much of a problem as government institutions. And government, we know, are special because there's only one of you. And you have unique particularities, particularly when it comes to things like trust and data sovereignty. Now, the vision of the data transformation programs is this idea that you can put data into one place, You can massage it and put it into a central repository and then derive brilliant analytics and do magic out of it. And the principles that have come out of this idea of self-service, federated computational governance, so irrespective of where the data kind of physically sits, if you will, it's federated. You've got really, really good fast delivery, privacy by design, that idea of shift left as you're doing your development and data management and data engineering. And that idea that you're moving towards, and Paul from Defence talked about that idea of moving from a federated sort of hub and spoke line of business to in domains, and domains owning their data stewards, and off they go and curate and do what they need to do with their data. Now, I've got a Microsoft little logo at the bottom there. This isn't to do with Microsoft, but it's just to give you an idea that this idea that you're going to stick it all in one lake and then off you go and you can do your magic on it. Now, that's the vision and the dream. And I think we've been trying to do that for the past 2 decades, if we're really honest with ourselves. We tried to do it with enterprise data warehouses back in the early noughties. You know, anybody who's done an Oracle one or an Infomix or a Sybase or Teradata, we try to put data into one place and then go and do our reporting and analytics off it. Now, has that delivered the value? And I was having a chat with a lady who's part of payments out of one of the New South Wales government state departments, and she said everybody is frustrated with IT because we can't get the data. The data sucks, I can't read it, I can't understand it. Yes, we're putting a big data lake strategy in place, and IT tells me then I'm going to be able to do my magic. And we've been trying this for 20 years. And we've got more data than we know what to do with, and it's not the lack of data, it's how we get access to that data. So the success metrics that, ladies and gentlemen, that I guess the way that we think about this is about how effective is the business value from data on these data transformation initiatives. Number of products, data products, not number of vendor products, but number of data products. The usability, what's the usability rate? The time to delivery, lead time to deliver. Access to data is the bane of our existence. How do we shorten that? Product accuracy. So when you send out a requirement out to IT, say, hey, can you build me this new dashboard or can you provision this new data? Is it accurate? Is it what you need? The NPS score or CSAT score. So are you happy with the rating that IT or the data groups are delivering that data, as opposed to it's pretty crap and I can't do what I need to do with it? The cross-domain collaboration, so that reuse and sharing aspects, and so we talked a lot, we're hearing already a lot about that. The rate of that reuse, and then also the reduction in help desk tickets. We have one client, it's one of the largest Caterpillar distributors in the world. They've reduced their data provisioning requests by 2/3. They have about an average of 900 a year. They've dropped that down to 300 through self-service. And that's in the space of 18 months. And I'm not embellishing that at all. Now just think of that value of getting access to that data because you have that idea of self-service. Now, it's a recognized pattern that we want to try and have a data fabric. Data fabric, and I'll go into a minute, but a data fabric is the principle that you can get access to all your data irrespective of where it sits. Now the big boys and girls, they're all coming out with their new data fabric products. So we know this is a here to stay architecture, data architecture or data framework, if you will. So we have SAP, they've got a product called Datasphere, we've got Google with Dataplex, we've got Microsoft with Data Fabric, Databricks has got their own, similarly with Snowflake and AWS. And there's a myriad of different other sort of vendors out there. What I'm saying is that this is a well understood, well tried, and now really come to the fore about how to provision and get access to data quickly. There's one fundamental, I think, and this is just Denodo's point of view, so you can take it with a grain of salt. But I think there's one fundamental kind of problem that they have with this approach to a large degree, and that is it's based on centralization. Get all the data into one single place, and then you can do your magical querying of data. Anybody in the room that's worked on a enterprise data warehouse migration project? Is anybody? Come on, there's got to be a few. We're all friends. Has it gone successfully, on time, on budget, and over-delivered? Okay. Will it ever go on time, on budget, or under budget, and over-deliver the value? Data is messy. It is a messy beast, and it's not going to get easier. I think we have to appreciate that data is this slippery sucker, along with all the governance and metadata and what am I looking at, and the curation of it, and the transformation of it, and the cleansing, and the quality, and the governance, and right? We have to agree that data is a slippery sucker, and it's going to not get easier, it's going to get harder. How we use it, that's all what we hear about. We're trying to use it in the way that enables citizens, that produces seamless, frictionless services. But it is a sucker of a beast, and it ain't going to get easier. And the problem, this is Denodo saying it, so you can take it with a grain of salt. The problem with this is that if we try and centralize data, we've been trying this for 20 years, and we would have done it 20 years ago when things were a lot easier. When we had SAP, we had Oracle, we had an old AS400, and we had what was known as a CRM system. And even then, it didn't really drive the value. It's not that it hasn't delivered any value, but it's really, really not well suited. And so I call this the cookie monster theory. Is the cookie monster ever satisfied with his cookies? Right? Give me the data, give me the data. So, all right, so what do we do about it? Now, this is this idea of this data fabric. Now, I want to just be very, 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 very clear and sort of methodical about this. This is from Gartner. So I'll give you Gartner's definition. It is an integrated layer of data and processes, because data by itself doesn't do anything. The process we talked about digital transformation and data coming together. It presents enterprise-wide coverage of data, not just one place, enterprise-wide coverage. It is not constrained by any platform or tool. So it is tool agnostic. And the good Lord knows we've got a bajillion tools to use, of which we're one of them. It unifies metadata for discovery and semantics inference. It unifies metadata for discovery, and we've heard about that from Emma. The fifth is it's composable by design and assembled in various combinations. It's composable. Now, at the bottom there, you can see you've got a myriad of different places where data is created and stored and transformed. So all good. Let's assume you've got 15 data lakes, like Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs said. We were about to build our 14th data lake. What are we doing? On the top here, on the top of that, you've got lots of different ways to consume data. Now, it used to be just the data analytics team that would go and write a dashboard and use a Power BI tool, and off you go. Is anybody happy with that model? No. Because everyone's using their own tool. Everyone wants access to data. Give me the data, and then I can go and do my magic with it. And the big one that's come in now is AI. AI is this big sucker that wants your data, and it wants a lot of it. And when we think about hallucinations and we think about bad experiences, anybody had a beautiful, non-infuriating experience with a chatbot? I mean, I had one this week. I tried to apply for a credit card. I've been with this bank since 2018. I had 2 loans. They've got more transactional data about me than I even know what I'm doing. And then they said, oh, you need to send us your payroll slips. I'm like, what? You need to send us your landlord agreement. I'm like, what are you talking about? You've got the data. So, and this is one of the major banks. So talk about AI. AI is going to be the big sucker for data. How do you get all that data that's sitting at the bottom into that AI so that you stop hallucinations and you don't infuriate people and you automate stuff? It's beautiful. Bad data in, bad data out. So this is the big place for innovation and value, but it needs data. So we're talking about this business data layer, access layer. That's the bit that's in the middle. And this is the bit where it's not that you don't have the data, it's how do you formulate it, format it, structure it, make it in a way that's consumable, irrespective of who's trying to consume it in a well sort of governed way. And that's where Denodo comes in. It's this idea of this semantic layer that sits between your consumers of data and where data is produced and hosted. And the principle on this is modeling the data, as you can see in that red area, of modeling and doing what we would call that last mile transformation, restructuring data without copying and replicating it, without saying, okay, I've got to stick it in another data lake to then transform it and make it into a format that then can be queried. And we know how that works out. Let's instead keep the data where it is, attached to all your beautiful places where data is curated, your data lakes, you're on-premise, you're on cloud, you're on your old applications, what have you, and connect it and then model that data and formulate it into a way that can be read and understood by the business and queried any way or any style that the business wants, any tool. And those models, those data products, if you will, in that red section get reused, discovered, off they go. And this is where, like Hastings Deering, has reduced their help desk tickets by 2/3. Now just think of the cost and the time. Think of the opportunity value that that has afforded them. Working capital, post-sale support, freight lead times. They're a complex business. They do 25 to 40,000 orders a day. They've got 26 warehouses. They're the world's largest Caterpillar distributor. They've got contracts with BHP and Rio and all those sorts of groups where they've got service level agreements, trying to get their parts to there. Think of the insights that that gives to them at really, really, really quick. So that's the idea of a data fabric, this principle that you have this last mile sort of business semantic layer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Minh, and he's going to take you through some customer stories. But he's doing an MBA through Harvard Business, and he's just recently come back with some great research about the effects of using AI, but using the principles of a data fabric. So over to you, Minh.
Thanks, Ben. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, perfect. So, I've been quite fortunate to be part of a small student group at Harvard Business School to study the concept of the AI factory, right? And this is just an extension of the work our professors have done at Harvard in terms of looking at all the leading organizations publicly in the world of what they're doing differently with AI than the rest of the other organizations, right? So the way Harvard Business School defines the AI factory is that it's about doing decision-making, analytics, and AI at scale. At events like this, right, you're going to hear some amazing case studies, customer stories on AI, business improvements, right? You're going to hear like stories here and there, right? But what I really want you to keep in mind is that how repeatable is this? How scalable is this? Like, how can you lift and shift it with low marginal costs, right? The leaders in this space for AI, they do this all the time. They can scale this out. So I'll take a step back now, right? So if you think about AI and what AI, the purpose of AI is, it does three things, right? It helps organizations automate a process. It helps organizations detect patterns. And the third bit is it helps with predictions and provides recommendations, right? So imagine your department, agency are able to do these three things at scale. Imagine how service delivery will be transformed. Imagine how policies will be improved, right? So you can see from the slides there, it's at the core of the AI factory is the data fabric, right? That goes across all the data sources that an organization would have. It's constantly feeding the AI factory, new up-to-date information so it can really operationalize. So this is like a very special topic to me. I spent a lot of time researching this. I won't go on about any more, but if you need to know anything or need materials, come see me at our booth. So next I'm going to talk about 3 customer stories from the public sector. They're all very different government departments and agencies. They're all unique in their own way, but they all share some similarities, right? They're all on a data modernization or IT modernization, digital transformation process, right? And it's been great, but all of them have the same challenge. The challenge is that although the technology, they're getting a lot of value from it, they're still having issues delivering the right data to the right people at the right time, at the right location, in a timely manner. They struggle with that. They can't do that at scale, right? Like out of all the investments they've done. So the first customer story I want to talk about is the National Health Services of Scotland. These guys, they're the largest employees in Scotland. The team we engage with here are called the Digital and Security Team, right? So they do not only provide a service for the National Health Services, but all the public sectors, right? So they do everything from AI, analytics, to like just the really advanced stuff, right? So this is the beginning of their journey. So they've had, I won't go into this too much. Everyone's seen a data warehouse. This is what their old systems look like, right? From it's been inherited, that there's 200 data sources, and it's bursting at the seams. So when we spoke to them, they said, look, we're on our 5th iterations of modernization, right? And the technology is going amazing. There's new data warehouse, there's new data lakes, amazing compute, amazing storage, right? Fantastic. But they weren't getting business value from it. These are the challenges that came up, right? So I'll summarize all these challenges in a couple of words, right? They were having problems providing access securely to their business, right? And it all stems from an integration, like a data integration challenge, right? It was taking them between 3 months to 12 months to really onboard a new data source into a data warehouse, right? The business couldn't wait, right? So, you know, and you think it's compounded, right? With more data, more requirements, more advanced use cases, you know, they like their old architecture methods weren't cutting it. So they, you know, they changed their thinking. They said, look, let's actually, you know, embrace that we're going to operate in a decentralized environment. We'll never get to a stage where we centralize everything. Let's actually, you know, really test this concept of a data fabric. So you can see your screen here. At the bottom, you've got all the data sources. They still got their, you know, data warehouse. They still got their data lake. But the great thing about what you're seeing here is that it doesn't matter what stage they are on in their migration journey or IT transformation or modernization, they can deliver the data to the business now. If they're at stage 1, they can do it. At stage 5, they can do it. Things change, it doesn't matter, right? There were 3, when we spoke to them, they said there were 3 benefits to this architecture. The first one is, they said it really changed our thinking of how we actually manage data, you know, for our consumers, right? We're not thinking about, okay, let's actually ingest some data into a data warehouse to make it accessible. They go, you know what? We can actually, you know, why don't we actually make the data accessible first, right? Let's make it accessible first to see if the business needs it. Let's not operate on, let's put data in a data warehouse just in case the business needs it, right? Think about all the headaches they save by doing that. Think about all the headaches your department, your agencies will save, all the cost savings if you go, before I embark on a really expensive project of actually doing custom data engineering to bring that data into a data warehouse, why don't I actually give it to the business first for them to use? Why don't I just virtualize it? So, you know, if it's useful, okay, great. We can actually put a case on actually bring that data into a data warehouse. The second advantage that they saw in this was that common data access layer, right? And I'll tell you why. So a data warehouse and a data lake, amazing, right? They've got amazing security and governance capabilities, right? Like Amazon, Google, Snowflake, great. What about all the data that aren't sitting in there? What about the data that are sitting on the peripheral that your data consumers need? What about that data? So by having a common data access layer, it ensures that every data, whether it's sitting in a data warehouse or a data lake or outside Excel file somewhere, it's still getting the same level of security and governance provision just on that data set. The third advantage is the, you know, at the top, like all the data consuming tools, right? So what you're seeing here is just a summary of what they got, but you know, if you imagine they're serving the whole of Scotland, so everyone's bringing their own tools. It doesn't matter, right? Like they could use it. They don't have to do anything, you know, funky in the back end to do some code just because some department somewhere is using a specialized tool. And within the data fabric architecture, they are able to do something quite unique and I think incredible. You know, they were able to build a cancer intelligence platform within this. So the cancer intelligence platform is basically providing all access to all cancer-related data, right? So really important data such as systemic anti-cancer treatment data that previously was sitting in 5 different repositories in 5 different regions. All this data has been collected from 14 different areas, and then it's formatted differently. So you can imagine a nightmare trying to bring that all into a repository to make it available. They can do that now. They can do that really quickly. But the most incredible thing now is that all their doctors, their medical teams, can actually see the linkage between diagnosis, treatment, and outcome. So what does this really mean to a cancer patient? So let's say if cancer patient comes in, gets a diagnosis, the doctor or medical team goes, look, it's unfortunate you've got a diagnosis, but however, there's someone of your similar demographic, a few of them in these different regions, they've had this treatment and it's been quite positive. Right? I think that's quite incredible, and that wouldn't be possible, right? If they didn't have access to the data. So moving on, I'm going to talk about the Central Bureau of Statistics, also known as Statistics Netherlands. They're our equivalent of the ABS. So this is a very old agency in Europe, right? Established since 1899. They've been involved in data from day one, right? They call themselves a data factory, right? And their main purpose is to standardize all data and provide all data to different government bodies and also the public. So you can imagine with the explosion of data and also the different requirements of organizations, the old ways of doing things, wasn't going to cut it anymore in terms of providing access to data. So when they embarked on the data strategy, this is what they wanted. They wanted one point, one access point from which all consumers can explore and access data. They also want to encourage self-service culture for data consumers. So whether you're using R, Python, SQL, Excel, Click, it doesn't matter. It's all good. And the third bit is being able to implement security governance centrally. So think about all the messiness, the nightmare that every time you have a security change, you have to fix it at the source. They want to do it centrally. So this is their data fabric architecture. As you can see from the bottom, you've got multiple data sources. Right? Above that, they call it the data extraction layer. So the great thing about this is, anytime there's a new data source, right, they can just add it in. They don't need to move that data. They don't need to centralize it. They'll just add it in to their data extraction layer. And the consumers they were serving were obviously their internal statistical production team that did monthly reporting for like all the various government bodies. They've also had a team of data scientists internally, which were also accessing this data. Thirdly, they also had bespoke teams that were doing ad hoc research for different requests from different government groups. And then externally, they've got researchers that always need this data. Think healthcare providers, think universities, think schools, right? They all need this data. And then lastly, the public. Right? The public wants access to this data. So right now, you can log into their website. You can actually access the data. So, when you look at this slide, I really want everyone to cast their eye on the data extraction layer, because think of how advantageous this is. Because what the data extraction layer does is it really decouples all the complexities from IT so the business users don't get impacted. So if systems change underneath, you're changing data warehouse, you're changing different storage or new data sources come, it's business as usual for the data consumers. Right? And now you think at the top, let's say you've got another data consumer providing another tool. IT doesn't need to do anything. Right? They know with full confidence that like still business usual, they don't actually have to spend time provisioning like another tool capability for someone to access the data, right? And that's really important, that data extraction layer. So the last customer story I want to talk about, and this one's a bit controversial, is the National Nuclear Security Administration in the US. So these guys are a part of Department of Energy in the US, and them, along with their partners, their main task is actually maintain all the nuclear sites across North America. It's these sites, their operations are about assembly and disassembly, putting together and taking out nuclear weapons, also maintaining the security, the risk and reliability of all these, of the nation's nuclear weapon stockpiles, right? They have a data sharing problem, right? I've been involved in a lot of data sharing case studies, but it doesn't get more complex than this. So if you can imagine different sites in North America having different legacy systems, formatted in a different way. That's crazy. And then you've got delayed data delivery. It was taking them more than 2 weeks in some instances to deliver that data to the consumer. And then they've got governance challenges, right? So if they have to custom code or build APIs to provide data to different people. So how does an engineer in the East Coast of America know that they're getting the most up-to-date data as the other data scientists that's sitting in the West Coast? And lastly, we're talking about security challenges. So every time you're sharing data, you're building APIs, data is actually just moving around. So, they just like all the other clients, they said, look, we're never going to get to stage. We're going to be able to centralize everything, right? And they've done multiple data modernization programs, right? And they're still trying to centralize a few data sources, but they said, look, let's just actually connect all the data. Let's connect it, virtualize it using metadata, provide a single access point for everyone, given the right privileges, can access this data. So the business impact was quite significant. They're able to operate 10 times faster when they're doing business solutions, because they don't actually have to do custom coding to provision data. It was actually taking them 2 days versus 2 weeks. They now have a unified data access layer. So anyone can come in, get that data, and it's totally, it's very audible. And then lastly, because they're reducing the cost to provision the data, from 14 days to 2 days, multiply that by how many data sets that they need to provision. Within the first 3 months, they're able to show a cost savings of 600 grand. Not to mention all the, all their projects ran a lot quicker. I'm going to stop there, and I'll hand it over to Ben, because we're out of time.
All right, thanks, Ben. So look, just a couple of parting remarks, ladies and gentlemen. They've all implemented a data fabric. That is, they've kept data where it is, they've put in a semantic layer that then now provisions that. The part is that they didn't wait for a data transformation program and then do this. This was on their continuous journey, and I think that's a really important part to this. This is what you would call a last mile data access layer. They had a problem with product delivery of data. So two really important things. The business value is measured in the speed of being able to provision that data. The second part is to be able to scale across the group. 2 really important things. That's about business getting access to data. And then the technical value is being able to reuse existing technology and using cloud technologies. Databricks, Snowflake, they're awesome. How do you leverage that with your existing legacy technology and unlocking that from the cloud with your on-premise? Really, really important principles. If you'd like to know more, if you'd like to come and see a demonstration, we've got it at lunchtime and in the afternoon, today and tomorrow, so please come. Also, please come and collect a Denodo Data Ninja t-shirt. They are out of stock, so they are a very, very highly prized item. Thank you very, very much, and I'll hand back to the moderator. Thank you.
Presentation. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Minh.